Bungalow Bill here. Today I'm going to be discussing another patch. It is a patch to the beta branch, not the alpha branch or the stable branch. It is 3.4.3.7, listed as a hotfix. And as I do not generally play on the beta branch, I usually play on the alpha branch. You can see that the basalt is slightly broken. There are some blocks missing. These belts aren't connecting. And let me quote, I believe it's Sean Beastman who writes these, but occasionally I believe it's someone else. Hey Adepthians, this little hotfix addresses a few issues with the new camera movement, as well as changes to the way ducts work. Ducts will no longer be watertight or airtight unless a propulsion block is directly behind them, leaving no gaps to the hull or roomed off. If you wish to have your propulsion further behind the ducts, period. Well, okay. It's obvious that these aren't particularly copy edited, and I hadn't even realized that ducts were air or watertight in the past, so I always both put a propeller behind it and roomed it off in a wet room. It was kind of overkill. But you may want to make sure if you play on the beta branch that your ships still float. Just hit P or something similar, perhaps just hide the armor blocks with Shift P a bunch of times, and look for any red air or helium pumps. I don't believe I've built any craft that would have caused those issues, but it is certainly something to look out for. This was precipitated by a poll on the From the Depths official Discord, and overwhelmingly the support was in favor of this change. It doesn't really change anything for me, but it may require probably a small number of fixes to some craft. So what are the other changes? Well, the other changes you probably saw just there are transitions were added. So you can set these to 0 to get rid of them in the options menu. And the beta branch in particular has been the one that's been getting the camera changes, so I complain about these all the time on the alpha branch. They are working on them. It's just they're not changing these on the alpha branch. The particular list of them for the camera is the one that I just listed. Fixed viewport tac map camera not working after scrolling to an altitude beyond the normal map transition, altitude in adventure mode. Fixed camera not working when starting custom battle mode. Fixed most, if not all, cases of camera misbehaving when accessing certain UIs during build mode. Some internal camera transitions smoothed. So, in general, there's been a lot of work. So we can try to sort of admire some of that work, and that was pretty smooth in comparison to what I'm used to on the alpha branch, and already fixed in previous patches on the beta branch are the camera wiggle issues that would appear because my camera seems quite locked on and smooth, and I don't get any of those annoying issues that I complain about, and every time I hit Shift's cap lock, it locks right on. On the alpha test branch, it only works every other time for some reason. Half the time it moves the camera but doesn't lock. The other thing that you can do is this, which apparently no longer follows the vehicle, or it keeps it in view but doesn't lock your camera to the vehicle like it does in the alpha branch. Not really sure how useful that is, but it is certainly an option, and that does seem to fix a little bit of this. The vehicle itself is smooth, the box is jittering. On the alpha test branch, both the box and the vehicle jitter. The box jittering, it looks like it's just these black lines. That might be some weird rendering issue. In addition, there is a change to a few changes to the decorations, and some subconstruct changes. So previously, there were issues where in some cases, if you had a sub-object like a 3-axis or 5-axis turret, and you removed a block on the bottom, but it had other legal connections, the whole thing would fall off. And this happened to me a lot while I was building craft, and it would be really annoying. And for some reason, whenever it happened to me, hitting Control-Z wouldn't even bring the sub-object back, which if I hadn't saved the sub-object was really not a lot of fun. I do believe that this is one of the connection checks that worked. It was either, might have been side connections that didn't work, I don't remember exactly. This change brought a few bugs that had to be hotfixed. On top of this hotfix, as was discussed on the Discord, but those have already been applied and should no longer be issues. In addition, there are a few decoration changes, one of which it won't apply to a wooden block, but is that if you hide the mesh of your block and you were using a block that has submeshes to it, those will all now be hidden. I very rarely used the hide original mesh. The only cases I really used it if I was building decorative windows or that sort of thing. I'm not a big fan of using it. I feel it's a little bit disingenuous, but if you're doing very particular types of builds, it can be very, very useful. If you have experience with that, you probably know which blocks it was an issue with. I know there were a few blocks that have submeshes, but I'm not sure if there are ones that were affected. Also, the sphere mimic now has PBR shaders and metallic values. I suppose these are probably reflections, not specular highlights, although I'm not a graphics person, I wouldn't know the difference. But I believe on the alpha test branch, if you use this mimic sphere, you would not get them. In addition to that, or as a result of that, has normal smoothing as well. So it should look more spherical. It was probably when they added the metallic values and that sort of stuff that you notice it. I don't know. Anyway, that's it for these rounds of changes. I hope you enjoyed watching, and I hope to see you in the future.